Congressman Eric Burlison is a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He represents the 7th Congressional District of Missouri, and he joins us now. Congressman, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Good to be back.
I know it's been a long night. You attended the White House meeting yesterday with the House Freedom Caucus members to kind of discuss through some of the concerns that you all had. Walk us through the final hours of this in reaching a point, because you weren't really on board until kind of later in the process where some significant changes were made.
Yeah, Tony, I would say that the bill moved from being a bill that I was absolutely not going to accept back in January. Those numbers back then were like $300 billion in savings to pay for $5 trillion in new tax cuts. I ran on balancing the budget and not growing the deficit. And so that was something that just was too much for me to swallow. I think that Freedom Caucus and myself were successful and able to, over the course of these last few months, get us in a position that was stronger and stronger and stronger at each step of the way. And yes, we certainly, while we weren't able to get everything that we wanted, I think that we were able to make progress this week on Sunday and on Monday night and even into Tuesday, able to make incremental progress on the language of the bill throughout that. And look, it's not perfect, but you have to take a step back. And I took a step back and said, look, there's a lot of wins. We banked a lot of wins in this bill. We were able to defund Planned Parenthood. That is massive. That's huge. Something that I never thought this town would be able to accomplish. We were able to eliminate the funding through Medicaid for transgender surgeries. We were able to, reinvigorate our industry sector and our energy sector through a lot of deregulation. Obviously, extend the Trump tax cuts, which are huge to our economy, and making sure that middle-class Americans, working Americans, are able to keep more of their money. There's an expansion of education savings accounts in this, and I believe there's an expansion of health savings accounts as well, all very free market ideas. And so at the end of the day, we can bank this as a win. It doesn't mean that we have solved the debt problem, and it's just something that we'll just have to continue to fight for in the future.
Now, the debt, as you rightfully mentioned, was a significant part of the conversation. A lot of the concern was the savings that this 10-year, and the way that these things are projected, they're done over a 10-year window. All of the savings were pretty much back on the back end. But as a result of the negotiations with the House Freedom Caucus and the Republican leadership in the White House, those were moved up. That was moved up in the manager's amendment in the 11th hour, so that those savings will be realized starting in 2026.
That's right. That's very much right. Well, in fact, this chart was one that we used often, and this was what the CBO had scored. And as you can see, at the beginning years, we were actually increasing the deficits. Only by the latter years were we reducing the deficits. And so this was of grave concern. While the complete 10-year window did meet the framework of what we were requesting, by backloading, and as you know, Tony, this town is known for extending a lot of the things that the industry wants extended. Right. And so, there was another chart that we demonstrated that since 1992, the green energy tax credits have been extended 11 times during that period. And so we just know, as elected officials, we've been there, we've done that. We tried to, and I think successfully, we're able to move a large portion of the savings into the more immediate years.
Which is going to realize those savings, because also on when you look at the turnover in Congress, the Congress that voted for this is not going to be here in 10 years. Just right. A small portion of them. So, it's a little deceptive. It's budget gimmickry that we often see with this. So, again, I commend the conservatives for fighting for this to get these savings up in the front part so that we'll actually see them. But the process is not over. it now goes to the Senate. So what's the sense of how the Senate will handle this?
You know, if history tells us anything, it'll probably get worse. This apple might start to rot. Maybe there may be a worm or a few worms appear, but I do have high hopes. The senators, many of them are talking very positively about taking the cuts that we had made and going further. And I think that the fact that in the course of these last days of negotiations, we had a Moody's downgraded the U.S. bond rating. That's the third credit agency to downgrade our bond rating. And as you know, having a downgraded rating means that every dime that we take out in new debt is going to be at a higher cost to the taxpayer and to our budget. So I think that this is a wake-up call, and I think that the Senate now has the opportunity to reflect on that downgrading and hopefully be able to find more opportunities for savings.
I would think that the White House will be leaning pretty heavily on the Senate to get this moving. The Speaker this morning says that he hopes to see this on the President's desk and signed into law by July the 4th, which means that the Senate's going to have to move at an unusual pace because they usually don't get things done very quickly.
Yeah, this town, everything moves at a very slow pace. And so, but yeah, I think that they have the time if they really commit to it to be able to accomplish this.
All right, Congressman, the Congress is out next week, Memorial Day, or the recess. Congress will be coming back the following week. So what's on tap now? What's Congress going to? It's been consumed with the reconciliation. So what's next on the agenda?
Next, we'll be working on the appropriations or the budget for next year. So as you know, our funding deadline ends September 30th. We need to pass a new appropriations bills, the 12 appropriation bills, by September 30th. And that's what we're going to be immediately working on.
It seems like as the House has been very focused in getting things done, that you're kind of in a mode that it hadn't happened in a long time, but we could see Congress actually do appropriations through the normal process. So it's a real possibility.
Yeah, we went through this last year, and a lot of the rust came off, and so we've now have lawmakers that have experienced this process, and I think the muscle memory is good. So I think we hopefully are able to pass all 12 appropriation bills. Last year we passed, I believe, 7 of the 12. But the more that we can pass, the more that we can ensure that we have get towards a more fiscal solvency.
Right. Those continuing resolutions cost us a bunch. Congressman Burlison, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Tony. You too.